What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with another video. With the NFL draft quickly coming up, I decided why not go back to last year's draft of the first round and redraft it based on how those rookies did. Before we get into it, you guys know the drill around here. Mott's applesauce if you're ever hungry, thirsty, whatever it might be. Mott's applesauce will satisfy whatever satisfy you need to satisfy with the Caveman guarantee. I promise it will never fail you. Which of these rookies did not fail their teams last year? Alright, so this was relatively difficult. I tried to factor in a bunch of different things like how all of the rookies did, what that team needed at the time in comparison to what that team struggled with throughout the 2021 season. There was just a bunch of things I tried to take into consideration here, so bear with me. Alright, let's not waste any more time here. The first overall pick belonged to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They originally selected Trevor Lawrence, and I do have them selecting Trevor Lawrence in my redraft as well. They were gunning for a quarterback. He was the best one in that class. I don't think this pick needs to be changed. The second overall pick, which belonged to the New York Jets, they originally selected quarterback Zach Wilson, and in my redraft, I have them selecting quarterback Mac Jones. Just like the Jags, the Jets were gunning for a quarterback with the second overall draft choice, and even though I do think Mac Jones would have gotten eaten alive if he got drafted by the New York Jets, he still produced well enough in his first season to make me think it would be hard for the Jets to pass up on Mac in a redraft. Third overall selection belonged to the San Francisco 49ers, and they originally selected Trey Lance, and I do also have them taking Trey Lance in my redraft. I'm very high on Trey Lance going into the season. I do think it was the right choice. They traded up to number 3 with the intention of taking a quarterback. I can't imagine they would have taken anybody else, and I do think Trey Lance is going to flourish after taking over for Jimmy G this year. Moving to the fourth overall selection, which belonged to the Atlanta Falcons, they originally took tight end Kyle Pitts, and in my redraft, I have them taking linebacker Micah Parsons. No way in hell in a redraft does Micah Parsons fall out of the top 5, and no way in hell is he not the first non-quarterback taken off the board. The fifth overall pick belonged to the Cincinnati Bengals. They originally took Jamar Chase, and I don't think you can make any argument to tell me that they shouldn't have taken Jamar Chase at this point in time. In a redraft, if Jamar Chase is available, they are taking Jamar Chase 10 out of 10 times. He is the biggest reason why they made the Super Bowl, and I stand by that statement. For the sixth overall pick, which belonged to the Miami Dolphins, they originally selected wide receiver Jalen Waddle, and in my redraft, I also have them taking wide receiver Jalen Waddle. You could probably make the case for them to take some offensive line help here because of how much that offensive line struggled in 2021, but Jalen Waddle, in my opinion, was an offensive difference maker. He broke the rookie reception record this season. He was just so good for Tua, and without him, I don't think Tua would have been a starting quarterback going into 2022. Next up, we got pick number 7, which belonged to the Detroit Lions. They originally selected offensive tackle Penei Sewell, and in a redraft, I also have them taking an offensive tackle, except I'm going with Rashawn Slater. Rashawn Slater was an absolute rock at the tackle position for the Los Angeles Chargers this season. He completely turned that offensive line around, and I do think he was the best offensive lineman, or offensive tackle, I should say, coming out of this draft class. Pro Bowl status definitely speaks to that sentiment. With that being said, he certainly would be the first tackle off the board, in my personal opinion, going to the Detroit Lions. For the 8th overall selection, which belonged to the Carolina Panthers, they originally took cornerback J.C. Horn, and although he did start off very well, he ended up breaking his foot, so I'm going to exclude him from this because I'm not exactly sure how he's going to perform for the rest of the year. So in the redraft, I have them taking some offensive line help, which I do think they should have done originally, and with Penei Sewell still on the board in my redraft, it's hard for me to have them pass up on him. The dude was still a very good offensive tackle. He might not have been the best out of his class in the first season. He still was very damn good, and I think he helped out that Panthers offensive line tremendously. The 9th overall selection, the Denver Broncos originally selected cornerback Patrick Surtain, and in my redraft, I also have them taking cornerback Patrick Surtain. He was an absolute difference maker in the back end for the Denver Broncos in 2021. He was the best corner that came out of this class, at least for the first season, and it's hard to imagine their secondary without him. Moving into double digits now, the 10th overall selection belonged to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they used that to take wide receiver Heisman winner Devontae Smith, and in my redraft, I also have them taking wide receiver Devontae Smith. He did not make the impact you might have expected him to for being a Heisman winner in his first season, but he certainly was doing his job. The Eagles were going for a wide receiver at that spot no matter what, and I completely agree with that thought process. Devontae Smith was the best wide receiver available at the time, and I do think he could have had a larger impact if Jalen Hurts would have just thrown him the ball. Next up for number 11, we have the Chicago Bears, who selected quarterback Justin Fields, and in my redraft, I also have them taking quarterback Justin Fields. I guess offensive line help did kind of make sense here, but at the same time, who are they protecting? They didn't have a quarterback at the time. They needed to find their next franchise guy, and it was Justin Fields. I completely agree with the selection. For the 12th overall selection, which belonged to the Dallas Cowboys, they used that to take linebacker Micah Parsons, of course, but now with him off the board in my redraft, who do they go with now? Well, I think the answer is honestly relatively simple, and it's the first player that wasn't selected originally in the first round, and that would be safety Javon Holland, who originally went to the Miami Dolphins. He was so good. He was so dominantly versatile for the Dolphins, especially on their 7-game win streak. upgrade, and he could have added a different dimension to that Dallas Cowboys secondary, which was struggling tremendously in 2021. For pick number 13, which belongs to the Los Angeles Chargers, they used that to originally select offensive tackle Rashawn Slater, but in this redraft, he's off the board, so instead, I have them taking tight end Kyle Pitts, who's magically still on the board in my redraft here. Although taking offensive line help seemed to make the most sense here, if Kyle Pitts was on the board, the Cincinnati Bengals certainly proved that taking some extra pass catching help to beef up that offense and make it pretty much overpowered certainly couldn't hurt either. Next at 14th, we have the New York Jets with their second selection of the first round, and they originally used that pick to take interior offensive lineman Elijah Vera Tucker, but in the redraft, I still have them taking another interior offensive lineman, but instead, they're going with Creed Humphrey without a doubt. The actual draft, Creed Humphrey was selected by the Kansas City Chiefs late in the second round, but he has proven to be more than worthy of a first round pick. He was excellent, and I mean excellent, in the 2021 season. He was one of the best centers in the NFL and by far the best rookie center. Absolutely outperformed his draft value, and with that being said, the New York Jets are going to take him here in the redraft at 14. Now at 15th overall, we have the New England Patriots, who of course drafted Mac Jones, and I still have them taking a quarterback in this redraft, but with Mac Jones off the board, we have to go with the other quarterback, and the Jets and the Patriots are going to switch futures, and they're going to be going with Zach Wilson here. Hitting the halfway point at the 16th overall pick, we got the Arizona Cardinals, who originally drafted linebacker Javon Holland, and after watching last season, I do think they could have used some offensive line help, and I don't think a lot of people would have went this route, but I think taking Christian Darrisaw would have been an awesome pick for the Cardinals here. Cardinals offensive line wasn't terrible, but I thought they could have done a better job of protecting Kyler Murray this season, and they really need a young stud to step into that offensive line and lead the way for years to come, and they really don't have that at the moment, and Christian Darrisaw, who originally went to the Minnesota Vikings at 23, I think could have been that guy for them. So yeah, with that pick, I have the Cardinals taking Darrisaw. Now at 17th overall, we saw the Las Vegas Raiders take one of the biggest reaches of the entire first round, and they selected offensive tackle Alex Leatherwood. That has not gone to plan, just as many people expected. So in the redraft, I have them taking offensive guard Trey Smith, who originally went to the Kansas City Chiefs. Going to the draft, Trey Smith had major health concerns, which plummeted his draft stock all the way to the point where the Kansas City Chiefs were able to take the 6th round. That's kind of crazy, and now I have him being a first round pick. He was that good, and although this might be a little bit of a reach in itself, I do think the Las Vegas Raiders were dead set on getting some offensive line help, and Trey Smith was one of the best out of this class. The 18th overall pick, the Miami Dolphins had their second selection of the first round, in which they used to take pass rusher Jalen Phillips, and in my redraft, I still have them taking Jalen Phillips. He was a big difference maker for them up front. They needed a pass rusher. He came through big time with 8.5 sacks in 2021. It's hard for me to pass up on him once again now that he's here in the redraft. The 19th overall selection, the Washington Commanders, or formerly known as the Washington Football Team, took linebacker Jamin Davis, and this definitely has not panned out in the favor they hoped, at least after the first season. And with that being said, in the redraft, I have them taking Nick Bolton. In all reality, Nick Bolton was drafted by the Chiefs later on in the second round, and I gotta say, the Chiefs absolutely killed the 2021 draft, man. Every single one of their picks seemed to make an impact early and often. But anyway, getting back on track, Commanders, or the football team, were looking for a well-rounded, diverse linebacker in Jamin Davis, and I don't think they've gotten that up to this point, and Nick Bolton would have fit this description perfectly for them, and that's why I have him here in the redraft. Next up, we got the Big 2-0, the 20th overall selection, which belonged to the New York Giants. They used that in all reality to draft wide receiver Kadarius Toney, and I gotta tell you, I could not stand this pick. I thought it was stupid, irresponsible, I thought it was moronic. This was a complete waste of a pick. That's not because Kadarius Toney is bad or because he didn't pan out. This is in hindsight. I hated this pick when it happened. I thought the Giants needed offensive line help desperately. They could have taken Christian Darrisaw at the time while he was on the board, and they chose not to. But in this redraft, getting back on track, I have them taking Elijah Vera Tucker, the interior offensive lineman. He's still on the board here, and I think it only makes sense considering Daniel Jones, in hindsight, got hurt anyway. 21st overall pick, we have the Indianapolis Colts, and they use that to select defensive end Kwity Paye, and I really love that pick, but I'm going to go off track here and do something that not a lot of people are probably going to expect. I think they can use some pass catchers, and with that in mind, I have them taking Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Detroit wide receiver that took the league by storm near the tail end of the season. He went in the 4th round to the Detroit Lions, and he almost eclipsed 1,000 yards. I know it might sound crazy to be considering him a first-round talent, but I really think he was that damn good. Imagine how good he'd be if he was with the Indianapolis Colts instead of the Detroit Lions. 22, we have the Tennessee Titans, and they took a chance with cornerback Caleb Farley. He was supposed to be the best corner in this class, but he just deals with injury upon injury upon injury, and then he ended up getting hurt in the first round. So in the redraft, I have them going with another cornerback being Nate Hobbs. Nate Hobbs was a boundary corner that went to the Las Vegas Raiders in the 5th round, but he apparently came on the scene, and honestly, I didn't even know this, and he made a humongous impact in the slot for the Las Vegas Raiders. So he is just showing his versatility left and right on a secondary that really wasn't that good. So I think he could have went to the Tennessee Titans and made just as much of an impact, if not even more. Next up, we got the Minnesota Vikings Vikings at 23, who originally used that pick to select offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw, but as we know, he is off the board in my redraft, and I don't think there's much offensive lineman talent left for them to take, so I have them taking in a different direction. I'm going to have the Vikings instead take linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I'm not even sure how to say his name, to be quite honest with you, but J.O.K. He was a freak of nature. He fell later on into the second round just because of some health concerns, but he definitely proved his worth to the Cleveland Browns. Next up at 24, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, in which they used that draft pick to take Najee Harris. I am not a big fan of taking running backs in the first round, and I think the Pittsburgh Steelers learned why this year, even though Najee was very good, it just wasn't worth it, man. Their offensive line wasn't good enough to block for him, so what was the point? So with that in mind, I of course am not going to have them take Najee Harris in my redraft, but there's still no offensive lineman talent that I think is worth a first round pick left in my redraft board, so I'm going to have them take a defensive lineman, being interior defensive lineman Christian Barmore. The Alabama product was absolutely excellent for the New England Patriots this season, and I do think the Pittsburgh Steelers, who got steamrolled on the ground in the run game, could absolutely have used an interior defensive lineman like Barmore. At pick 25, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars up once again, as they use that to select running back Travis Etienne, and like I mentioned, I'm not a big running back in the first round guy, and the Jaguars were completely clowned for this decision, and as we all found out, Urban Meyer truly had no idea what he was doing. I have the Jaguars taking somebody else in the redraft, and I'm going to go with safety Trayvon Moehrig. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but he went about halfway through the second round to the Las Vegas Raiders, and he was another piece, another young piece to the Las Vegas Raiders secondary that helped them tremendously, and with that in mind, I think he could have went to the Jacksonville Jaguars and been a piece for them as well. Reaching the tail end of the redraft here, we have the Cleveland Browns at the 26th overall selection, in which they used to select cornerback Greg Newsome II, and in my redraft, I still have them taking Greg Newsome II. He was one of the better corners coming out of this draft class, and he really proved his worth to the Browns early and often. Moving on to 27, we have the Baltimore Ravens. They originally used this draft pick to take wide receiver Rashad Bateman, and I don't hate this pick at all whatsoever, but I do think Jason Oweh would have been the better pick here, even though they did end up getting him, just like 3 picks later. At the 28th overall pick, we have the New Orleans Saints, who probably really regret not taking a receiver. Granted, they didn't know that Michael Thomas was going to be out for the entire season. They went with Peyton Turner. So in the redraft, instead of the Ravens taking Rashad Bateman, I have him falling one more spot to the New Orleans Saints. I really like Rashad Bateman. He was stuck playing with a mishmash of quarterbacks throughout 2021 with the Baltimore Ravens, and he also did not start the year off, so he definitely could have had a better season, and I look forward to seeing what he's got in the future. Next up with the 29th overall pick, the Green Bay Packers selected cornerback Eric Stokes. They were dead set on taking a corner, and in the redraft, I still have them taking Eric Stokes as well. Eric Stokes stepped in relatively nicely and exceeded expectations. He wasn't expected to be their top corner, but when Jair Alexander went down for pretty much the entire season, he had big shoes to fill, and I think he did a pretty damn good job, so I definitely have them going with him in the redraft. 3 picks remaining, the Buffalo Bills at the 30th overall selection, in which they used to take defensive end Gregory Rousseau, and as a Bills fan, I didn't hate the pick at the time. I didn't love it. I was just kind of indifferent, Gregory Rousseau had a relatively decent season. We knew him coming to the Buffalo Bills did not mean immediate impact whatsoever. He was a freak athlete that needed his game polished and developed, and we knew that wasn't going to happen in a single season, of course. But for some reason, I just can't get out of the back of my mind that maybe our season goes slightly different if we're able to get the quarterback to the ground a little bit more than we did, and if we would have taken a pass rusher in the first round of the 2021 draft that had more of an immediate impact, then maybe things could have gone differently for us. Who knows? For the sake of being slightly different, I have the Bills taking Azeez Ojulari. He went to the New York Giants about halfway through the second round. Pass rusher Azeez Ojulari had 8 sacks on the season for the New York Giants, and he also had the second most pressures out of any rookie coming out of the 2021 draft class, so he really had a pretty damn good year, and it makes me think, like, who knows what could have happened if we had somebody other than Rousseau. Not saying it could have changed everything drastically, but 2 picks remaining at the 31st overall pick, we once again have the Baltimore Ravens with their second selection in the first round. They used that to take Jason Oweh, who I used for the 27th pick for the Baltimore Ravens, so instead I have them taking a wide receiver here, and I'm going with Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore went to the Jets early in the second round, and he had a relatively decent rookie season. He dealt with injuries and very shitty quarterback play, but if he was with a better team, with better quarterbacks, I really think he could have exploded on the scene. And last but not least, we have the 32nd overall pick, which belonged to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they took pass rusher Joe Tryon, but instead, in the redraft, I have them taking defensive end Kwity Paye, who originally went to the Colts, but I have him going to the Bucs since he fell down here, and I do think he's very, very good and still worthy of a first-round pick. But yeah, there it is. I just redrafted the entire first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. Please let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What do you like? What don't you like? What would you change? I want to know. But as always, if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe to all the fun stuff. If you want to hit the bell to be notified when I upload, I'd appreciate that. And over to Twitter, follow me over there. I'd appreciate that as well. I have a TikTok down in my description that I think you should check out. And I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.